Kavana, intent, a mindfulness. Lishma, for its own sake. When we do a mitzvah, when we do a divine act, in the divine act, we add to the act kavana, the mindfulness, the intent. And that intent is to be lishma, for its own sake, for God's sake. When we do that, we can fly. We have wings to fly. What does it mean? What are we flying? Where are we going? Well, if you recite a prayer with kavana, with intent, meaning intent that you're motivated by lishma, for its own sake, for God's sake, and the way you're motivated for someone else and for God too, or God first, shall we say, is that when you have a love and awe for someone, you do for them. Otherwise, everything you do is for yourself. Otherwise, motivated for our own benefit. But to do for another, to do it for God, the mitzvah, the study of Torah, in order to connect and not be disconnected, which is love and awe. That is the idea of lishma. That's the mindfulness that will motivate us to do the mitzvah, to do the good. That kavana is clothed, it permeates. For example, when we're saying words of Torah, words of prayer, right? The letters of our speech. And those words, because this is the kavana, the intent, it becomes elevated, those words. It becomes elevated. So if the motivation is something that the mind fed the heart, and the heart has a palpable feeling of love and awe, so then it will go to the world of Bria, to the divine attributes, to the divinity in the world of Bria, which is the divine attributes, the spheros. If it's motivated by the hidden love, the natural love that the soul has, and that's what the motivation is to connect because of the natural love that we are mindful of, not because we've kind of developed it and developed it in a way that it brings out a feeling in the heart, but it's a knowing heart, intellectual love, and that's what leads us to do the mitzvah, to study Torah as we're doing now. So then it ascends to the world of Yetzirah, the world of formation, the world of divine emotions. And it becomes there connected to the Ein Sof, to the infinite of God, because the divine attributes are one with God. Which means that that mitzvah that we do, right, is got a eternity to it as a result. As a result. Now, the radiance of that, so that's going up, but there's a light that comes down as a result. And that light that comes down and that embraces us is not something that we will be able to experience now. It's too great for us. But we will be able to experience it at the end of days, when the world will rise out of its base materiality. That materiality will not be just the material world as we perceive it, but it will be a deeper perception that we'll be able to see in the material world the revelation of God. All flesh will behold that. All of us will behold that. All human beings. Not just Jews, by the way. Right? Now, in a note, in a parenthetical note, you might say is a sidebar, in a sense, What happens through that union as a result is that we can sweeten severities. Meaning, if there's a judgment above on us, right? God forbid, on someone's health, on someone's wealth, on someone's, family life, whatever. There's a judgment, meaning a severe judgment. Through the act of the mitzvah, because what we're doing is it's ascending on high to the Ein Sof ultimately that is bound up with the divine attributes. So that performance of the mitzvah, or that occupation of Torah that we're dealing with now, right, being that it's the embodiment of the supernal will of God, and in the supernal will of God is God himself, the Ein Sof, the limitlessness of God. So that causes a coalescing of the divine attributes as a result on high. And therefore, if there is any kind of negativity coming from the attribute of Gvura from above, that there's some form of judgment on the individual, then because of the coalescing of these attributes, there is what we call a sweetening of the severities. This is, and interesting to note that this is a parenthetical or a note that the Alter Rebbe is making as opposed to the main point. In other words, through the act of the mitzvah, or the study of Torah, as we're engaged now, we bring this new godliness, into this world, and it reveals in such a way that it will sweeten a judgment upon the individual. End of note. Now, says the Alter Rebbe, this explains why the awe and love of God are figuratively called wings. And to fly, you need two wings. You can't fly with one wing, right? I'm going to get a beautiful metaphor over here. Because each wing represents a different quality. Love and awe, those are the two wings. And as Reb Chaim Vital, who is the student of the Arizal, explains, that the right wing corresponds to chesed, kindness, the right arm, the right wing, and gvura is the left. Those are the two, gvura, severity. Otherwise, if you're lacking with awe and love, you become a fledgling that cannot fly. Now, the Zohar explains very interestingly that a bird, and some of the angels are called like the archangel Matzerton, is a bird, and it's made up of the name of God. Actually, everything is a makeup of the name of God. So here we have the name of God, Yud Ke Vav Ke, Yud and a He and a Vav and a He, Tetragrammaton. So the Zohar explains. Now you have to be a little imaginative over here. The Yud is the head of the bird. You can see that, even with the beak over here. The Vav is the body of the bird. Right, here's the body. And then the He and the He are the two wings of the bird. They're the two wings. So God is the source of all creatures. God is the source of all everything. The material world, spiritual world, God's the source of everything. The Yud Ke Vav Ke, the name of God, that particular name of God, right? So here we see a bird that's an embodiment of the name of God, which is quite interesting. I can barely do stick figures, but this kind I could, to draw a bird. Now, continuing, that was, by the way, also a note, a sidebar, if you will. So the wings of a bird are not the main component of the bird, because its life does not depend on the wings at all. As the Mishnah implies, that it says that a bird whose wings were removed is still kosher. Rather, the main part of the bird is the head and the body. In God's name, the Yud and the Vav. Right? Which is interesting to note. A Yud, look at that. The Hey is the extension of the Yud. The Vav the Hey is an extension of the Vav, which is a lot more to go into that, but not for the moment. Just bringing out that the main component is the head and the body of the bird, not the wings. The wings are what enable it to fly. That's a metaphor. Likewise, our Torah mitzvahs, what we're engaged in right now in our Torah learning. The essential thing is that we're learning. And in that learning, or in the act of the mitzvah, whether it's giving charity, putting on tefillin, eating matzah on Passover, the first two at the Seder, we have a union that we are bound up with God in the very act itself, because that's the will of God. The kavanah that we have, the intent that we have, is the wings that allow it to be elevated, to allow it to fly above. Fly where? Where are we going? Well, to the two worlds that we explain, whether to the world of Yitzira, world of Bria, based on what kind of motive we had, as we explained previously, will allow my mitzvah to ascend to the divine above, the divine attributes that are connected with the Ein Sof, and there is an eternity to that mitzvah as a result. So, in the act of the mitzvah, you have a bond with God. For it to have an eternity to it, it needs kavanah, it needs lishma, it needs mindfulness, intent. Lishma, to connect, to do it for God's sake, to do it out of love and awe for God. Then it can have wings to fly to the divine above, and it's connected there forevermore. And as we said previously, in here chapter 40, is that the revelation of that will come at the end of days when Mashiach comes. It will then be truly revealed to us. Now, we don't have a true revelation of it. The light would be too great, too powerful, overpowering us. And times Mashiach will be revealed.